So, hey, thanks for joining. This is the JCNA Southwest Regional Judges Training. I'm Dave Allen, Chief Judge for San Diego Club. You should be seeing a blue screen PowerPoint called the Concord Judges Refresher Training. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm presenting this, but I didn't write it. Now, I first of all want to give credit to a lot of people who put a lot of work in before I inherited it. So it started off with Jim Morton, Dick Kavik, and other people have since worked on it as well. And, this is the most up-to-date revised March 2023. And here's the contents: the judge requirements, presentation of the car, judging cleanliness, condition authenticity, operational verification, highlights of the updates for 2023, and we've got some score sheet reminders with examples, and I have, it's kind of in the backup, but there is also prior rule book updates and there for reference. So I don't intend to go through all of these charts, the sort of, extensive backup content. Most of us know this. It's a recap. For one or two people here, this is new stuff. So thank you for the new folks interested in becoming judges. To become certified, candidates must undergo training like this and take and pass a test, get at least 45 out of 50 correctly. And for the brand new judges, serve as an apprentice during one event, be approved by the judging team leader, serve as a judge, and have chief judge approve the scoring. Judge currency. To keep your certification, you must avail yourself to help with judging whenever needed, and that might include for another club if possible. Receive an annual briefing on the rulebook changes, and this is why we're here today. It's the annual briefing on rulebook changes. Take and pass the current judges test at least every 3 years, and there'll be an opportunity at the end of this to do the test. And we've kind of done a new thing. My son Matt has made a digital version of the test, and so there's no sort of cut and paste and scan and sign and all the rest of it. It should be pretty easy. It's open book, so we could do this after this presentation. The 3-year testing cycle is the test year plus 2 years. So as long as you can count to 3, you're okay with that rule. Here's the philosophy, and it's kind of important here. It's to we're trying. Each club is required to judge to the same standard, and that's why there are rules, and that's why there's training and all the rest of it. So, and the philosophy is that the entry's configuration and condition shall be as it was officially documented or intended to have left the factory. So what you're trying to look at is, has it left the factory? So, and that's where we get sort of very detailed on non-authentic modifications. Let's go on to here. Protocol. So for judges, a reminder: don't touch the car, the tools, the handbooks. Ask the entrance to do it. Ask the entrant to open, close the door of the car when needed. Don't sit in the car to judge. Don't talk unless necessary. You can talk, introduce yourself and all the rest of it, but you don't have to engage in lots of dialogue. Don't show the score sheet to the entrant, except when asking for non-authenticity items to be initialed. I think there's examples later about that. Share authenticity knowledge with team members. So you judge the cars as a team, and if one of the members knows more about that particular car type than others, then please share. Study the guides. The use of an approved JCNA judging guide for the class being judged is mandatory if there is one for that class. They're a tremendous resource. Each club should have their own copies of these. Judging teams. All judges must be a JCNA members. One certified judge required for OV plus 2 assistants who may but don't have to be certified. So that's a bit of small print there about the operational verification. All judges must be certified and current. Team leaders should be helpful, not overbearing. I don't know if that was written for a particular instance, but I've never seen anybody be anything other than helpful. Judging team members can and should communicate with each other during the judging. Wherever possible, teams should be primarily organized according to the members' shared model class expertise. So as chief judge, when I'm preparing a judge's roster for the concours, I ask judges, what are you familiar with? So we can basically match the judges to the cars being judged. Keep the team intact during scoring of the same class, so the team stays with the class. That way we get a consistent score in that particular concours, a consistent judging standard. Judge may not judge the class containing their own car. There's a whole lot of ethics involved with this. Want to make sure that there's no conflict of interest and so on and so on. So there's lots of possible views of that that we need to sort of avoid. If you have worked on any of the cars, please let the chief judge know before judging begins. And in the San Diego Club, we do have at least 2 judges who own car shops, maybe 3 even. So we want to avoid that perception of conflicts before the judging begins. Information for judges. The team leaders and the chief judge talk to each other. When a JCNA judge's guide exists, it's mandatory. The applicable judging guides becomes the authenticity standard for the model. If a judge or an entrant disagrees with the JCNA judging guide, the first effort should be with the chief judge. If unable to resolve, they should submit a formal protest with official reference materials to correct the guide. Rulebook, every judge should have a copy. San Diego Jaguar Club, we have 6 copies available on the day. So we've got sort of a little bit of a library going there.
Dave,
share and authenticity. Dave, yes, Mark.
One thing that we probably should add to this is that any factory parts manuals or service manuals and bulletins are also considered authentic reference materials, along with factory published model advertising materials, such as what you would get in a showroom. Those are all legitimate resources for authenticity of a particular car, especially with the newer models where you have a number of accessory items that were produced by Jaguar as added value to the automobile that you don't necessarily see in a parts manual. So gotcha. Again, that happened a lot in the XK8, XK, and XJ series from 2000 on.
So got that, made a note. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Car presentation by the entrant. The entry must proceed to its judging location under its own power. Apparently in the past, things have been pushed to places that's not right. Rags down time. This is really important. And what I want the judges to be aware of is it's very easy for the chief judge not to know that an entrant is bypassing is not honoring the rags down time. So if as a judge you see an entrant polishing the car after the rags down time, let the chief judge know. Otherwise, you could get the situation. One judge goes by, says, please stop doing it. Another judge goes by, please stop doing it. And the chief judge never knows. So please be aware of that. Clean out areas to be judged, remove accessory floor mats and seat covers, gimmicks and all the rest of it. None of the entrants should highlight the weaknesses of other entrants' cars. So don't diss the competition. People can get disqualified for that. And the entrant should either it should have some sort of ownership of the car, and if that's in doubt, ask for evidence that it is their car. Prepare the car for presentation. The doors, bonnet, deck lid, blah blah, will be opened, closed as directed by the chief judge. For the San Diego Concours, it's all top up, bonnet closed, and I think in American bonnet is hood. Hopefully that translates well. Soft tops latched, windows up, gas cap, blah blah blah, closed. Spare tire in position, cover on. And it's important. Sometimes the entrance, it's their first concours, they haven't read the instructions and all the rest of it. So judges need to be aware of kind of what's required also. If possible, put a neat display of side curtains for for the older cars, factory floor mats, license plate holders that may or may not that aren't attached to the car. So the front bracket basically. Hood covers, tonneau covers, tools and jack, and optional tools will be judged if displayed, which means there's a risk in displaying optional tools because you could get a deduction on it when you don't need to even show it. Anyway, that's a bit of gamesmanship there. What do we judge? Cleanliness. Is the car free of serious dirt, dust, grease, and all the rest
I'm
of it?
sorry, this is Nathan Guillory.
Yeah.
I have a question on the previous slide.
Let's go back.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I couldn't get off of mute fast enough. When it says prepare separate neat display, so you're talking about off of the car itself,
yes.
to the side or front or back of the car. I'm not quite clear where we're supposed to display these.
So realistically, it depends. If you've got sort of foot traffic going nearby, you don't want to put it in the way of that sort of thing. So it's really to enable, in the 15 minutes for the judging team to judge the car, how can you best see all this stuff?
Yeah. Okay.
It being in the trunk might not, isn't the best place. So
right. I just wondered because some of these are large items, and as you said, with foot traffic, it might be hard to find an area to display all of these things on the ground, either to the side or in front of the car. So
what we normally do is bring a picnic blanket and put the things on there, and it kind of marks the territory, if you like. And not everything might be spread out on it. It might be a sort of a bit of a jumble, but that seems to work for us.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. It's
by the way, those items should be specific to the automobile.
Right.
Any trophies or photographs or any other promotional materials, that all is not judged and should be either not displayed or brought out later on. But the judges are looking specifically for those toolkits, side curtains, or whatever.
Yes.
And so it's got to be specific to the automobile.
Right. Only items that were sold with the vehicle or left the factory with it. Yes. Understood.
Mark, this is Steve in Denver. The only other option would be for a Jaguar accessories catalog if you're trying to provide information for valve stem caps or other things that were sold by Jaguar
The
cars.
dealers or Jaguar, right?
Does that
you
include
would wanna
sales
have handy.
brochures?
Well,
Yes.
again, the sales brochure really doesn't need to be shown. It's simply, it's a reference piece. It's not a part of the automobile.
Right.
For those like additional brochures, we'll come to it later in the in this material. But
Okay,
it's
Yeah.
there in case. I'm thinking of a contrived example. Suppose your car has a roof rack on it, and nobody's ever seen one.
right.
So to prevent getting a deduction for this unusual roof rack, if you have the accessories brochure that says there for this 2012 car, there was a roof rack available, and this is it.
Yeah, and
And-
XF and X-Type had roof racks, but you'd have to have the brochure, the factory brochure that showed that roof rack, and it
Right.
was available, and along with a bike rack even.
So you don't need to display it as such. But you might need it as something to
Proof of
help the judges
authenticity.
recognize that that's
Yes.
a
It's just authenticity. It's authenticity issue.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. So back to cleanliness. Minor dust should not receive a deduction, especially if it could have happened after rags down, because we're an outside event. We're going to judge one car, then another, then another, then another. That last car has been in the dust for longer than the others, so we need to just be mindful of that. Dick Kovik's quote: "If it can be seen, it should be clean." So we're looking for it again as it left the factory. Think of yourself as picking up a new car. Is it clean enough? Condition: inspect, deduct for wear, damage, corrosion, discoloration, fading, etc. And I've got examples in this presentation to look at what's minor, what's major, sort of calibrate the number of points deductions for the sort of particular condition issue. Deduct if it's damaged only. Be mindful of min and max deductions. That's important. If there's a minimum deduction of 2 points, you can't deduct 1 point.
Dave, this is Steve.
Yeah.
If I may, I have a slide I'm going to send to you for next year.
Uh-huh.
But people need to know the difference between taking off 0.1 and 1 point.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
if you subtract 0.1 from 1,000, your final score is a 99.99. If you took off a full point, that brings that same car down to 99.90. And there's a term I want to introduce as to don't kill the car. We've had a judge that took off a lot of points, and it brings the car down. It can bring a car score down significantly.
Yeah.
By taking a full point rather than a tenth of a point. So you and I'll discuss that later for next year's presentation, but people need to know the difference between minimum and maximum.
Absolutely, yeah. On that topic, we also do a hands-on training class where we gather at one of our members' homes. Actually, this year it will be Nidra's, thank you. And we bring cars and practice judging. And so we have cars with some known issues that we use for sort of judge calibration and what's major, what's minor, and all the rest of it. So judges can get, again, I like the idea, don't kill the car. We do this for fun, but we're also trying to be consistent as well. So we talked about cleanliness, we talked about condition, and then authenticity. Are the judged parts present? If it's not there, it's missing. Is it authorized by Jaguar? Is it original or look identical to the original? And if there are multiple deductions for a single component, only judge for the higher point deduction. So if the car has incorrect window winders, making up an example, and they're dirty, but they're not correct, pick the higher point score and don't double up, so to speak. Then there's operational verification. Verification that horns and lights, exterior lights work. And each of these cleanliness, condition, authenticity, OV features are highlighted in the score sheet with deductions. In some cases, the deductions are identified on the score sheet. In others, you have to have the rule book by you. Judging techniques. You may see more if you focus on an area one after another rather than just looking at the car in general. One idea is if you're looking at the left side of the car and the right side of the car, make notes first on the left side or the right side, the first side, and then score after seeing the second side, so you can sort of tally up and just put in a combined score. What do you think of this? Does this look okay to you? Is a fair question to ask your teammates. Avoid duplicating deductions with other judges. Sill plate, sort of the transition between interior and exterior can cause opportunities to trip up with each other. So make sure that you capture it once and once only. Do not judge front or rear suspension components. Brake drums, discs or calipers, the undersides of vehicles, the inner sidewalls of road tires. Body coloured areas and visible parts of the tailpipe should be judged. So don't crawl underneath the car, but again, look for the brake drums and discs or calipers is a good one. There's at least a few cars such as the XK 120, 140, 150 who have aftermarket Willwood calipers and disc brake conversions and stuff like that. That is not judged. No deductions for that. And this was a clarification. They added it's a Willwood brake on a something, but don't. That doesn't receive deductions for the non-authentic brakes. OV, confirm that the functions work and it's done by a primary team or a separate 2 to 3 person operation verification team. So you could do OV at the start of the concours separately from the judging, or you could do it as part of the judging activity. So the gotchas here are if the OV people are separate from the judging team and they think there's something non-authentic, like the horns aren't correct, they need to close with the primary judging team to ensure that it gets a review, and the primary judging team deducts the points for non-authenticity.
Oh, Dave, you're referring to Italian air horns?
Could be.
Yeah. That would be an example of non-authentic horn in the OV, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds great from a...
Sounds great, but...
Anyway, you are allowed a 15-minute courtesy repair time after OV check. Judges must not help or advise on repairs. And the entrant is responsible for knowing how to operate the horn and lights on their entry. This is often not the case. It is not the judge's team's responsibility to instruct the entrant, but you could point them as to which button to press if you know which button to press. But it isn't your responsibility, it's the owner. But you can help them, but don't feel obliged to. Most of all, if you don't know how to do it, don't feel bad for not knowing, right? So, by the way, just to clarify, if you did find Italian horns were on the car in OV, and then you went back to the primary judging team to get the a discussion going and then deduct points for non-authenticity, then for all non-authenticity deductions, we need the owner's signature to acknowledge that they've been flagged for non-authenticity. I'll come back to that later in this chart. Updates for 2023. So new phase here of the material. Administrative clarification for the 2023 concours season, and there's some clarification there, some rewording which we've basically gone through here. And this is about to become a judge and an apprentice judge process. So to reiterate, the apprentice, so this is for Bridget specifically. Thank you for doing this. Attend the judges school, take the test, practice judging on one or more components under the supervision of the chief judge, and serve at a sanctioned concours and practice scoring for at least once, and then get sort of signed off for the next concours. Maintaining of judging currency. Training session is a judges school, so that's why we're here doing this. This is super important. Not all clubs have up-to-date guides, or at least hadn't in the past. And so my request is that all the chief judges of all of the clubs who hold concours audit your library of judging guides and make sure you've got the latest one. For example, the Series 1 E-Type, the original one, didn't include hardly anything about when the flashlight system, the sort of the warning lights, the hazard were introduced. The new version, updated 10 years ago now, has the changeover, the car number, and all the rest of it. So it takes a lot of guesswork out about what's correct and what's not. So this is a good table to sort of take away and check that you've got it. Rags down. I talked about this earlier because it's very important. All entrants must be instructed by the chief judges to cease preparation of so rags down, stop polishing, and walk away from the car. Get it, it's now ready for judging. After the rags down warning, the subsequent failure of any entrant, family member, associate, or other non-related individual present at the event to heed or abide by that warning and not follow the rags down requirement will be subject to the entrant's continued participation in that event. May be disqualified. So again, my request is please inform the chief judge of any violations to enable the entrant to receive an appropriate reminder and a fair warning.
Dave, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
That was only put in there recently because we had someone cleaning a car right up to the minute the judges walked up to it. However, if a bird poops on your car, you would need to get it cleaned off right away. So that's why it's up to the chief judge to make the discretion.
Yeah.
If you're still cleaning the car and the judges walk up on no, that's a violation. But if you got ash falling or bird poop or whatever, you just have to make decisions the day of the event.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, this is Jim Sambold. The other important thing that I want to bring to everyone's attention here, including those that are chief judges that are on this, is that once a chief judge has invoked the right to disqualify an entrant, it cannot be reversed. So we put that in there for the purpose of making sure that the chief judge gives due consideration to the events that have taken place that would determine whether somebody can be effectively disqualified for that event. And so not later than a half an hour, somebody's talking, well, hey, can you put me back in, kind of thing. So once the disqualification is invoked, that's it for the event. It doesn't get overturned.
Thank you for that clarification, Jim. And Steve also for pointing out that, if a bird deposits on your car or whatever, it's okay to get rid of that. Score sheet. A reminder about the score sheet. Score sheets without your information can get lost. Check the name and the car if they were completed legibly before starting, so that's up there. And also check it for consistency. Did the car is the car to be judged the one that was registered? The reason why that's important is that some clubs complete this form ahead of time based on the registration information. So
And I have it's not software, but it's between Excel and Word. If anyone cares, I can show you how to generate and fill all that information in from an Excel sheet. It's a word merge, and I have it all set up. So if you care to find out, let me know.
Cool, thank you.
Jim, I got a question about this, because through the years, I've judged this thing, and I think, wouldn't you say it's the responsibility of the owner to make sure that the information that is printed or he prints there is in fact correct ultimately? So in other words, let's say he's in champion 13 and the chief judge mistakenly puts him in the champion 14. Isn't it the responsibility of the owner to say, wait a minute, I'm in 13 rather than 14, and he should go to the chief judge to make that correction? Conversely, any information that a participant provides should also be checked by the chief judge. And I think we have to say, there's got to be, how many times have we seen judges sheets like this without a JCNA number?
Well, yeah.
Guys go, oh God, I don't remember my JCNA number. Oh, I got to go find out. They've got to take a certain amount of responsibility also besides the chief judge.
Well, yeah, you are correct, Mark. It is initially up to the owners of the vehicle to make sure that everything is correct. Depending on the amount of information that's supplied with the registration form that the club has used, is also going to depend on what's printed, on the judging sheet. But another point of checkpoint, if you will, when the team lead approaches a vehicle at the start of the judging, the team lead can also check at least to verify that the placard that's on the car for the class is correct for the class that they're judging too. So
yeah, good point.
And another thing that I like to bring up to when I used to do classes is that, most people never remember their JCNA number, as simple as it may or may not be, but most everyone has a smartphone with a note section or some, app that they can put notations in. I suggest that everybody at some point put that in their phone so that they can reference it, on the day of the event if they need to, if they can't remember it.
Yeah.
So,
because part of the challenge as a chief judge is that you have to go be Mr. Detective looking for somebody's JCNA number on the website. That's the worst case scenario, and it happens too many times.
Well, the other issues that we're still having, they're getting fewer, is that if somebody has a primary membership in one club and an associate membership in another club, and the JCNA numbers haven't been adjusted so that they reflect one number, you're apt to have somebody in one region using an associate number from another region where they may be a snowbird, and then they go to the leaderboard at the end of the year and they go, well, hey, I did 3 events, but I'm only showing 2. And then it becomes a detective issue for not only myself, but Jack Humphreys and membership chair to kind of go in and figure out what happened.
Yep.
So to get back, regardless of responsibilities, this is when the judge team picks the form off of the windshield, that's the last time it's going to get sort of. If it's not correct at that point, the next place it goes to is the scorekeepers and the chief judges and all the rest of it. So it's sort of, this is the last check to make sure that that's accurate there. Entrance JCNA number isn't strictly necessary because you don't have to be a JCNA member to enter the Concours. You have to own the Jaguar, but make sure that the entrance name is there. The judge's name, please put your name on it, and the judge's JCNA number. Next, let's talk about OV, operational.
Wait a minute, Dave, there's a very important point. You just go back to that slide. Previous slide. You judges, the importance of a judge's number is that it tells the chief judge and Jim Sambold whether the judge is currently certified as a judge. That's why it's very important to make sure that you know your number in there. Because, you know, we've had judges who think they are certified and they've exceeded the 3-year time, and it creates a real problem, because then the entire that automobile may be, or that entire class of cars may be disqualified because you have a judge that is not current in their certification. So it's very important that you judges put your judge's number in there and that you stay current on your certification.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. OV. There's a max deduction. This is an extract from the score sheet, and there's sort of instructions here. So every Jaguar has 2 horns that together sound a chord. Deduct 1 point if only 1 horn works. 6 points if no horns work. So you got a maximum deduction of 6, and each light filament or horn receives a 1 point deduction. If both horns work but each sounds the same, no, deduct 2, because at least one of them is a non-authentic horn. And it's kind of not possible to get 3 points. So there's follow the instructions and all will be good.
Okay, so Dave, again, going back to the Italian air horn, that's a non-authentic horn. It sounds, but it's a non-authentic horn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting, in the OV, there is no authenticity. Is there, Steve? I don't recall anything in authenticity on OV.
I have not considered, well, non-authenticity would then be up to the team lead for the exterior judge.
Right.
That's why OV requires a certified judge to administer it. You can have assistants, but it's a certified judge.
Yeah.
So that in practice, the certified judge should pick up on the air horns, then talk to the team leader of the judging team if it's a separate team, or get back together with the rest of the team and make the non-authentic deduction.
By the way, another question. If a person has LED lights, headlamps, in his XK 150, 120, 140, whatever.
We don't judge the bulb style.
You judge
LEDs
the light.
are fine because you don't really look at the bulb itself. Just does the headlight work? And the fact that they put out more light is acceptable.
Okay, that's yeah. I get it. I just want
That's
to make sure.
essentially a safety thing, Mark.
Yeah, I get it.
The LED, so we don't judge on safety.
Lights. Very self-explanatory. Deduct 1 point for each inoperative filament, and the max deduction if there are no bulbs working in a system. I don't know if this is a Lucas thing, but dim is working. And some of the marker lights on things like XK 120s and 140s are really dim, so or can be. Entering deductions. This is The deduction should be appropriate to the size and importance of the flaw. And so, for example, with scratch chipped paint, you could have a minimum of 0.1, a maximum of 7. So there's a huge variation there. And to Steve Kennedy's point earlier about having a car going from a high score to a low score very quickly, with if somebody's a bit too liberal with this, it can be discouraging for the participant, and also not accurate in terms of with the other cars from other Conclaw. It's got to be at least the minimum for the deduction, and the total deduction should not exceed the maximum. So if the minimum is 0.2, 0.3, you can't put a 0.1 if the minimum is the minimum. And I've got examples here about what is considered, minimum, moderate, major. Every section has a line for cleanliness. So whether it's carpets, hardware and steering wheel, seats, there's a cleanliness element to all of them. Deduct for each incident. Deduct the minimum value for a minor flaw, more for bigger. Don't exceed the maximum value. This is also important. Notes for the entrant. The locations of at least the top 3 cleanliness and condition deductions should be listed. And that's to help the entrant. If you've spotted something that that can be fixed, it would be nice for the entrant to know what it is, where it is. So put something helpful. So if there was a scratch on the left rear door, put a note there, 11, small scratch, left rear door. And that helps the owner be aware of what it was. Maybe they're going to fix it for another time.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the score sheets for your Italian horn question.
Yeah.
Each inoperative light filament or horn receives a 1-point deduction for if it's not operative. And an operative system receives a maximum deduction indicated. So for horns, it'd be 6. So if you got Italian horns on there, I'm going to say that's non-authentic. And it's not that it's inoperative, but it's not authentic. So I think that's going to be your 6-point deduction.
6-point deduction, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Good. I know what to do now.
By the way, this extra dialogue's really important because it shows how some of this is very subtle, and the rule book is a guide, but it doesn't cover every eventuality. And so sometimes you just have to make a judgment call, and as was demonstrated there.
And along that line, I've added in the deductions, not for OV, but for other, like if you're looking at something on the exterior and you just can't figure out where in the rule book it is, I've added an other deduction of 1 point, or of 0.1, I mean. So you at least have something to make a deduction for.
Yeah.
So if it's not anything else, it's under other.
Max deduction by model, and this is it's been very well thought through that each sheet has 2 columns for the max deductions depending on the body style, min and max. So the idea is that a soft top, a drop head coupe has more possibilities of deductions than a fixed head coupe, because there's all that folding mechanism and all the rest of it. So the idea is that for convertibles and fixed heads in the same class, they sort of are scored on an even playing field, even though the cars are subtly different. So there is a max deduction for drop head coupes, open top sports, XJSC on this column, or if it's a saloon or a fixed head, it's this column. If that makes, does anybody have any questions about that? But if you're looking at an XJSC, which is the cabriolet version of an XJS, use this column. And in the same class, you could have a fixed head Jaguar XJS here. And so you use different columns for the different cars, even if
There
they're
are
in the same
actually
class at the same time.
3 different convertible types in XJSs. One with no back seat, that, and I can't remember the name of the firm in the United States that converted it.
Oh, it's Essen
That
Reinhardt.
was, yeah.
Then there's the
H&E.
one, the SC, and then there's the one the Jaguar did from 92 through 96.
Yeah. So
Wasn't there one that was just called the Cabriolet?
yeah, there was. Yeah. It had.
Yeah.
It had like a target or a T-top thing, and it had
Yeah.
sort of removable
Right.
panels.
Yeah, and they had
And
a
that-
locker.
yeah,
it
like
had
that
a
was
locker in the
converted, I
back.
think, after market by a separate company, if I remember right.
Eisenhart conversion.
Yeah,
That's
Yes,
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower
Eisenhower
from
was
the
a conversion.
XJSC.
The Cabriolet was a factory car.
yeah, Cabriolet was factory, that's
Yeah.
right.
The
I think there's a
Eisenhower
difference
conversion
between,
was, I think, 88 through 90, or somewhere in
I
there.
think so.
So the point is, different cars in the same class may use different columns here, and be aware of that. It's the same with XK140s. You could have an XK140 open top sport, drop head coupe, or a fixed head coupe, and use these different columns. Looking through each sort of category in a little bit of detail: sheet metal on the body panel, smooth and dent free. Is there a good panel fit? Original cars weren't perfect, so if the gap isn't exactly 3 millimeters or whatever it might be with today's modern cars, they never were back in the day. But they did look nice. So there's a sort of a don't be over strict on the panel fit, especially with the older cars. And check.
Some of them had panels that never did fit.
Yeah.
Not to mention the oil, not to mention the oil canning on the pre-1965 cars, the saloons and the XKs, the doors especially on the 150 and 140.
So be realistic. And I've got some examples here. Sheet metal panel alignment. This is a poor fit because the bonnet doesn't look like it fits. With the close up there, it's hard to see, but it's it doesn't fit well. It looks like it's partially open, and so it's got a poor fit. And this is where the sort of calibration comes in. Is it a 0.2? It's pretty obvious. It's kind of in your face, but it's not a 6 or an 8. So use judgment. And this is an example of, it's not super serious. This boot lid is a poor fit, and it looks like more of a poor fit because it's sort of something's going on there. You wouldn't have expected to leave the factory like that, and it's got a poor fit over all of its all of the side there. So rationale for a sort of a 1.0 deduction. Paint finish. Check for scratches, chips, peeling, fading, all the rest of it. Include paint hidden by closed doors on the sort of A pillar, B pillar, and all the rest of it. Check when the interior judge has the door open. Clear bras, that's the protective film and all the rest of it. Forward of the A post only. If it goes past the A post, sort of onto the doors and so on, then it's not authentic. driven only, by the way. Each defect found adds some amount to the total. So if you found, and this was the comment about walking around the car and making little tally marks as you see sort of a little scratch, dimple or whatever, and then you can just total it as long as it's between the min and the max deductions. Paint flaws, a couple of examples here. 1.0 to 6 points. Again, a massive variation of possible deductions. This pit here, it's a bit rusty. It's next to that dime. It's more of a minimum size. The next one, it's sort of the size of a whole bolt, so that's sort of maybe half an inch or more across. Every visible defect deserves at least the minimum deduction. There's some more examples there, and what these pictures are trying to show is just to give you an idea of what might be a 0.2, a 0.5, a 0.3, so you can sort of feel you don't have to leap to the maximum deduction for each one, if you know what I mean. So you know, if it's smaller than a thumbnail, if it's smaller than a fingernail, that's about fingernail size, I suppose. Next, more paint flaws. That gash, it's there. It's at least a 1. The peeling top clear coat. Depends how large these are. So, and if you do see those, make a note on the score sheet so the owner knows where they are if they weren't aware of them already. Sugar scoops. This is I call it an E-type. Some people call it an XKE. But this is the sugar scoop, and this isn't a sort of original one. It looks kind of textured, that silver paint. That's an aftermarket version that is very, very hammered finish. It's not right kind of at all. So people who know these things and would give a deduction for that non-authentic finish. That refinish is much smoother, much more acceptable, and I think you would be hard pressed to know if that was original or not, because that's how it's supposed to look like. Glass, lamps, and lenses. Again, look for cleanliness and condition. Each pair of headlights, fog lights, driving lamps is identical in make, so the car should be symmetric. There may be examples of very, very old cars where there's a separate driving lamp on one side and a fog lamp on the other. So that's in the sort of, people who know that stuff need to take that into account. Check for correct bolts and screws and lamp lenses and so on. Chrome work. Inspect all the bright chrome, visible exhaust, bumpers, accessories. Bluish tint is okay. There's sort of a different standards of chrome plate finish, but what you're looking for is should be nice and shiny, with no and then score the dents, ripples, and all the rest of it per this. Damaged chrome. That looks like some kind of a parking incident or something, but there's a pretty sizable issue there. Exterior chrome work. Exhaust pipe ends and the rubber that contacts that bright trim. So there's an item for the rubber, even though we're talking about chrome and stainless there. XK120s. Tailpipe information as best we understand it, and this is covered in the judge's guide. The only chrome exhausts were on the early cars. All of the pipes, all the cars, all the pipes in the rear should be black. And then here's where it gets a bit subtle. Now, if a judge isn't familiar with the XK120s and 140s, 150s, if you're added to a team of to judge an XK150 or these kind of cars, there will be knowledgeable people on the team, so I don't want people to think that they're going to be looking at these museum pieces if their only experience of Jaguars is an F-Type, for example. So we try and put judges with their relevant expertise. Exterior soft top, that will only apply to convertibles and for the XJ Coupe vinyl roof. If it's not a soft top, draw a line through it. So just do that. And some clubs do that already for the score sheets. Exterior soft top and accessories.
I'm sorry, I have a question about that.
Do
Maybe
you want
this
to go back?
well, I don't think it's necessary. Just more of a general question on the judging. Are the convertibles and coupes judged in the same class?
Yes.
So how is that fair for someone that has a convertible if they have extra deductions against their car that a coupe wouldn't have?
So this is how it's dealt with. On the score sheet, there's a column of maximum deductions for the convertibles and for the fixed heads. And so the fixed heads typically have higher max deductions.
I got it.
Because the convertibles have more things to go wrong with them, if you like, because of the soft top, the headliner, the mechanisms, the seals, and all the rest of it that goes with it. So
right,
that's
covered that, but I didn't fully pick up on that until just now. Thank you.
Yeah, it's there's some subtle stuff in this, so thanks for speaking out.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. My theory is if somebody speaks out, then probably somebody else didn't earlier, if you know what I mean. So thanks for doing it.
Okay.
Where are we now? So we talked about that. So we go back to here. The soft tops, the accessories, check for wear and fit. It's covered later, but when the soft top goes up and down, it will wear. Now, even if a car was only a year old, there'd probably be evidence that the soft top had been moved. So as judges, be realistic when you look at a soft top car and is it fair wear and tear or is it damaged? And don't over penalize like minor creases from actually being used. The cars should have a cover or a hood envelope for the lower top. Tonneau covers for the cockpit on the 150s and 120s. And the XJC, those are the two-door coupes from 1974 and 76. They have a black vinyl roof. A lot don't these days, but they all had them from the factory because back in the day, the paint would flake off because the car wasn't as... It would crack. Thank you, Matt. Just the cars weren't as stiff as their four-door variants. Wheels. Check the size. There's rules.
Good top.
Was that a question?
Yeah, question on the previous slide. A hood envelope. Are you saying A, it's required? And B, if it's required, is it folded or is it supposed to be opened and laid out?
These the accessories laid out.
Hood
So
envelope.
this one here.
No, the hood envelope under XKE. Soft tops have a cover or hood envelope.
Okay, so the hood envelope. What we do is lay it out on that picnic blanket next to the car.
So you need to have it fully laid out.
Yeah.
Fold it.
Otherwise, it's kind of in the way. If it's on the seats, it's in the way of the interior judge and all the rest of it. So, just.
Dave, let me jump in here.
Yeah.
So it should be fully laid open so that it can be inspected for cleanliness and condition, as well as being of correct fitness and style.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Well, thanks for the question. Helps clarify this stuff. Wheels, exterior. Check the size, condition, knockoffs, center caps. On the more modern cars, the bolts that hold the wheels on. In the rules book, there's an Appendix B, which has got the specifications of all of the wheels. All four must match. Now, on some of the recent cars, they intentionally came from the factory with what's known as staggered wheels. So XK8s, XKRs, XKs.
X-150s.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And I
Matt in
think
the background was giving me all the tips on this.
XJs from 2010 on.
Right. So all four must match doesn't mean all four must match.
Well, it does
Inside.
in that the style of the
The
wheel
style, yeah.
must match, but
Yeah.
not the diameter or the width of the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's be aware of that. The boot judge checks the spare wheel and tire. Driven entries may have wider wire wheel rims or original alloys chromed. The inside diameter must be as original. Hey, Mark, we were talking about this just a couple of days ago.
I want to go back to your boot judge must check the spare.
Yeah.
As we also know, a lot of the cars now have those small donut tires.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the XK, the later XKs that came with run flat tires, I have just found, did not have any spare or tire pump.
No, some came with repair kits and no spare.
And what I'm saying is, so I just found out some of the XKs did not even have the repair kit.
That I was
The
not
owner's
aware of.
manual, and it said not supplied with run flat tires. So that will be an addition for next year's AGM.
So if you
If you have a spare, must it match the four? Because you say all four must match. You don't say all five. If it does have a Y wheel and the spare's a Y wheel, should it with a tire? Should they both?
I was not talking wire wheels like on an E-type. I was talking the whatever
Standard.
the wheel is
Standard.
called, like in the newer cars where they
Yeah.
have that.
the point is still valid though. Should the spare wheel and tire match the
Not
other
if it's
four on the
orange.
car?
Not if it's orange or the black. I need to find the right name for that thing, but it's that, you know what I'm talking about. It's that little donut tire.
Yeah, I've got
50
one.
miles.
Yeah.
But that doesn't match anything. But the condition of it should be in good condition.
Hey, something else to look out for is a lot of the dealers chromed the four road wheels, but didn't chrome the spare in some of the mid 90s and 2000s cars. So you might find a spare that's powder coated and road wheels that are chromed on a driven car.
That's correct. And Jaguar did also chrome some wheels. Again, that's in Appendix B.
But they would not match, and therefore it would be a deduction if you were in looking for it, I guess, in Champion. But you can't chrome in Champion anyway, right?
That's not correct. We happen to have a 2007 sedan that has factory chrome wheels. All five match.
Okay, then they would have to all match. You couldn't have like a powder coated spare.
No.
Yeah.
But again, that's in Appendix B.
Yeah, no, that was my question. Older cars, all five should match.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you've got an E-type, which should have had 5-inch wheels and it's got 6-inch wheels, if the four road wheels are the 6-inch wide and the one in the trunk is a 5-inch wide, then there's something not matching there.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah. Wheels is a massive topic. Tires, exterior tires. check all 4 tires for condition. Remember, we're looking at it to be the gold standard, if you like, is a new car. So it shouldn't have cracked and shoddy tires, should have legal tread. Don't need to check the inner sidewalls of the road tires. 4 must be the same size and brand. And that I probably need to fix that, because the same size and brand, again, with these staggered cars is not strictly correct. They must be the same. It must be consistent.
Same brand.
Yeah, so if you've got Pirelli P0s on your, your XKR, and they're all in the front and there is a different size, that's okay if they are the correct size from the factory. And this is where you need to go back to the Appendix B to check that. The valve caps, pre-60s, should have metal. Logo caps must be documented as an authorized Jaguar accessory.
And that's where you would have your Jaguar accessory catalog available for the judge to look at.
Yeah, good have the interior wood lined vinyl. Wood should be shiny without scratches. Should not think like a plastic coffee table. So it should look like Jaguar wood. Leather and vinyl on the console and the steering wheel, etc., for the faults. And what we're talking about there is it scratched? Is it dimpled? Is it peeling, and all the rest of it? And the seats and the doors, let's look for those elsewhere. Just to go back to that, there are some cars made by Jaguar from the factory that were not shiny on their wood. It was dull. If you've got a 2006 Jaguar XJ8 Portfolio with the dull wood, it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring the factory documentation to show that that's legit. Interior headliner, no sags. Normal creasing and compressing and rubbing is an acknowledgement for the drop head coupes, where they have a headliner inside of the soft top. When it's folded, you may get normal creasing and compressing. Next. Yeah, E-Type, they all left the factory looking like this with that tan color. If it's got a black interior, which a lot have, it's incorrect. And that tan is on all of them, whether it's a blue top, red top, black top. E-Types have this anti-drumming shot bag, which is often missing on E-Types. Apparently from people who have done with and without, those are functional. They stop the whole thing from drumming and so on. So be on the lookout for that. That color, by the way, is correct. That sort of grayish paint for the frame. Interior door panels and armrests. Look for tears, fading, wrinkling. It should fit properly. There should be the right number of fasteners. Not all cars had armrests. The judging guide should specify that. And if radio is fitted, make sure it's proper radio speakers and grills. Carpeting. Any loose mats should be removed by the owner. So if you've got over mats, take them out so the judges can see the factory carpets. If when you come to the car the mats are still in, ask them to move them. If they can't be removed, and I don't know why they wouldn't be able to be, but sort of ask the entrant to raise them. Check for the floors, torn, any holes, faded, discolored, worn, poor binding, stitching, and cleanliness. Check the rubber.
On the floor mats.
Yeah.
Sorry, that goes even for factory floor mats.
Take out the factory floor mats.
Okay. Okay,
and then put them on that picnic blanket with the other stuff, and then to leave the sort of the factory carpet that should be there.
okay.
Dave, Jim Sample. So the point of that, to the gentleman's question, is that so both areas can be effectively judged by the component judge for cleanliness, condition, and authenticity.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. So while we're talking about that, something like a Jaguar Vandenplas sedan would have come typically from the factory with sort of these nice lamb's wool overmaps. Take them out, but if you don't have them, then it's a missing item. So there's points to be had here, if you know what I mean. In that all cars from the factory, at least the modern ones, came with factory overmaps. So there's an authenticity deduction possibly if you've got aftermarket maps like we have on our XJS.
I don't know about the Mark. I don't know about a Mark 10, but I know the Mark 9 had a really thick mat in the back seat. It's removable, but it's like sheepskin or something. It's really thick.
Are we taking points off if if the factory overmats are missing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see the line item for that. Is it a maximum deduction or where is it?
It'd be missing or non-authentic. And that was
Missing-
in chapter 6.
Oh, okay. All right. I was looking for it on this slide and
Yes,
so
this
it's,
is judging what's there versus, and what we're talking about is an authenticity deduction for something missing, and that's in a separate area.
okay. So it says it's been a while since I've judged, so I'm just looking for a line item that says missing. Yes.
So in the rule book, there's an authenticity section.
On the quick reference
yeah.
page, it would be page 6 under interior carpet selection, interior including factory floor mats. Missing or wrong is the 2-point or a 14-point for max deduction.
Okay, good. That's what I was
Slightly
looking for.
missing, it'd be 14-point for if you're missing front and rear mats.
Sounds good. All righty.
614G item 10. Yeah.
But that's where you have to refer from the score sheet to the rule book to find out what your deduction is.
Here's a couple of examples for cleanliness and condition, and where things are. So an XK120 open top sport battery. It's in that cabin. It's in that little box there. So the seats have to be pulled forward for the entrant. The entrant needs to do this. You know, the judge can't climb in and do all this. And this is to look for the batteries there.
I have a quick question for everybody on batteries that way.
Mhm.
Because like on the 120, they're there. On the 140, 50, they're in the fenders. And then you get to like an XJS has a cover over it. Then you get to like an F-type and it's inside the trunk under a panel. And I'm wondering if we need to make a proposal for a rule change saying if the battery has a factory cover over it, it's not to be judged. So it would look like the upper right picture and what you're showing right there. It's got a factory cover and that you don't go any further. However, if it's like a Series 3 sedan where it's when you open up the bonnet, it's staring you right in the face, then you judge it. So the question is, should I propose a rule saying if it has a factory cover, it's not to be judged. If it's an exposed battery, it's to be judged.
If you're asking that question of the people here, I think that proposal is a good one. The XJS has a little 2-clip cover thing, and the more you use that, the more likely it is to break off.
That's right.
And I think it's a good idea.
I'd like to hear from a couple.
Yeah, and then And the battery in the 140 and 150 are in the right passenger.
Yeah, they're in the fender, so you can't even look at them. And they're not
Well,
judged now.
right in front of it, you know, and you can't even see it. Yeah.
So the question is, should the proposal be if it has a factory cover or is not visible as it left the
In the
factory?
case of the 120, though, Steve, well, the thing is, though, Steve, with the 120, it had the two 6-volt batteries, which is unique to the 120.
Well, no, Mark, the 150 has 2 6-volts.
And that's why
Okay.
you would be checking that.
So does the Mark 9.
Where? Yeah, and those are covered too, right?
I think it's a good idea. I like it because practically on the concours field, it's kind of like dismantling the car, and it's
Yeah.
and you sort of, it's covered from the factory. So yeah, I like it.
I like it too, because I do have one of those XJS clips and one of them has broken, and I've got, and I've got a little peg just through the other hole, but I've only got one clip left and I don't really know where to get the other clips. I don't know
They're
if any,
available.
oh, they
Charlie,
are.
they're available.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll look
No
into
big
that.
deal.
Okay, I'll look into that. And then, but imagine trying to remove a seat from the car. I mean, stuff breaks when you do this stuff. So I like the idea just for
I
that
like the
reason
idea a lot,
alone.
yeah.
I don't hear any general opposition, so I will propose that rule. It would not go into effect until 2025, but I'll have it for discussion at the 2024 AGM.
Cool.
This is Les. One of the things probably need to clarify is the badges, the battery on an XK and on an F-Pace. That is in the back of the vehicle behind the spare wheel. And in order to really get a good look at it, you'd have to take the spare wheel out, which seems not to be appropriate for on the field, I would think.
Well, then you
And
can go a bit further.
Oh, I went to look for the battery on my mom's car. She's got an S-Type, a 2003. I couldn't even find the battery. I'm like, where did they put the battery? Is it under the seat or is it? I couldn't even find it. I was just like, no, you know what? Just take it to the shop. They'll probably figure it out.
So in my 2002 XKR, it's under the floorboard of the trunk.
Yeah.
You basically have to remove there's 2 separate floorboard panels, one for the battery, one for the spare tire.
Yeah.
So but in order to remove the one for the battery,
You gotta move the other one.
you almost have to take out the whole other panel for the spare tire too to get at it.
Okay,
So-
so the consensus sounds like
The X-150 convertible. You have to take out the floor panel in the boot, as well as the luggage separator for the convertible top operator. And then another panel behind that, which hides the battery and the radio and the telephone, the mobile phone unit.
okay, so I'm going to take this as everybody thinks it's a good idea to propose that rule. Now we can move on to the next slide.
Before we do, enough on batteries, right? So
Yes.
interior door jambs, sills, shut and hinge, faces, rubber seals and wear, and so on. The interior judge examines this, is what can be seen after the doors are opened, and don't overlap with the exterior judge for things like the sills and the hinge faces and so on. And it's there. Look for the rub, all of the items listed. Seats, squabs, belts. The squab, that's the seat. Is that the seat? The seat back. That's it. Yeah. Normal impressions are not flaws. So again, you're looking at cars that have been sat in already. Seat belts must be neatly installed and vintage or period appropriate. And there's some good examples here about this seat bolster here. It's got cracks. So The one in the center of the picture is sort of much wider than the other one, so maybe that's a 2-point deduction, a 1-point deduction. It's not a 14-point deduction, right? It's sort of that's prime area to get worn and now get repaired. This has got general wear, kind of all over the place, so maybe an additional amount for this. And it's very difficult to say this is worth that, because this, in terms of the defect, they're not the same. There's a bit of discoloration there. There's a bit of more than a significant amount of creasing. But be realistic. Be consistent. More leather. This is quite rough and dry here, so it should be deducted. It's beyond normal wear and tear. It sort of basically needs attention, and there's a scuff there. Boot, the trunk, if it's driven, you don't judge the boot trunk, strike it out. It may already have been done for you. Boot surfaces, judge all visible surfaces. Some cars have jack clips and latches and all the rest of it in there, so make sure they are there. And I just wanted to. I'll come back to that. I thought the next chart had the trunk liner or the boot liner for an E-Type. There should always be this biscuit color, and that whatever the color the car was, the Roadster had a biscuit color interior. Tools. Check owner's manual and pouch. Don't get a hold of it yourself as a judge. Ask the entrant to deal with that. Jack and handle.
On that owner's pouch, especially that tan clear cover, I would recommend don't ask the owner to open it either, because it's going to tear, especially on a very hot day.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Have it. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Tools, and not all cars had tools, but some cars had really extensive, tools provided. So judge those for cleanliness, condition, and authenticity. Boot, spare wheel, cover. Expose the spare wheel, but don't remove it. It should match the 4 road wheels, with all those exceptions we discussed earlier. Inspect for the type, the size, the defects, cleanliness. Valve stem should match. Tire cover material should be appropriate, and some tire cover hardware may be plated or painted. So again, make sure it's sort of appropriate for the car. And here's some examples.
Back to tool. I got a question on tools.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near getting my tool book done, but for the jacking equipment on the newer sedans, it's under the spare tire, or it's, if the spare tire is flipped upside down, it's on top of the spare tire. As Nedra will admit, she's not going to pull the spare tire out and break her nails. Neither is my wife.
You're right.
So I'm looking at, do we also need to have a rule saying if the tool kit is like under the spare tire, like it is in the newer sedans, you don't have to pull the tire?
I think that's good from a practical experience. We have an XK8 that we take to Concours, and that is a right royal pain in the whatnot. I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So currently, the participants have to take the spare tire out so that the hardware can be judged?
Yes, if the jacking equipment is under the spare tire has to be removed, not by my wife, to inspect the
Wow.
jacking equipment.
That's a little. I don't ever recall actually coming across a car where I've asked somebody to do that, but so that is a new one. And yeah, I can't. My mother-in-law is like, she'll be 91 this year, and she wouldn't even be able to do it.
It might be
Yeah.
good exercise, keep her all flexible and nimble and stuff. you
Yeah,
know?
well, she's 91, man. Yeah, I would be concerned about her even trying that. We might be winding up in the ER if she tried that.
But the XK8, for example, of 2002, that's what we show. Taking the big cover out of the trunk and the battery cover out of the trunk and the spare wheel to get to the tools, it's work, and not everybody.
Let me ask this favor. For people who have S-types and other cars like we were just talking about, please take a picture with your phone and either send it to Dave or send it to Mark, and he'll get it to me so I can put some rules together with some examples of why we don't want to have to pull the covers off the batteries or take the spare out to look at the jacking equipment. Send them to those two guys and they'll get them on to me.
Will do. And just for information, your email address is, for the people that don't have it.
It's S like in Steve. Well, that's what I say. Everybody has yours. Everybody has Mark's. So send it to you guys.
Okay.
rather than writing mine down.
Yeah, that works. There's quite a few bonus material coming up from this.
In other words, Steve doesn't want to give it out. He wants his privacy.
Good luck with that. Right, back to judging. And this is another example of, those little clips that hold that battery cover on in this XJ40. They're going to snap and break and all the rest of it. So
Yeah, I want that picture.
okay. And then to take that cover off. Oh, and then the tools are back here. So you're going to take this cover off to get to the wheel, take the wheel off to get to there. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife won't do it. I doubt Nedra would do it.
No.
I doubt somebody's mother that's 91 would do it. So
I'm just curious, can the judges just go to the chief judge and say, this entrant has, for physical, preferences, just for the physicality of doing this, they just prefer not to do it and let the chief judge talk it over? Would that be a good?
It needs to be in the rule book. And while we're looking at that picture, do we then want to say, how easy is that tire cover to get off and put back on to inspect that tire? Because as long as we're talking about covered things.
So an XJS, so this is a Carpenter one. I can't talk to that one in particular, but an XJS in the 1987 era has a vinyl cover on that, right. And it's quite tight. And so to get it off is easy. To put it back so it looks nice can take a while. And it may not survive it. It's 40 years old already or getting on that way. So there's a lot of reasons to say, let's just leave it like this top left picture and move on,
On my 2007 sedan, the panel lifts up relatively easy. So you can look at that. And it goes back down easy without any effort. So we're going to have another separate discussion on spare tire covers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back to the regularly scheduled event, engine, bright metal, cam covers, carb domes for cars that have that sort of stuff. Is it good? Now, the comment here about smoothing, some engine parts, and I'm talking particularly about the XK engines, so E-Type, Mark 10, Mark 2, and so on. Some parts were sort of cast, and if you sort of polish everything, you can over polish and smooth things out, and that's non-authentic. Bright finish is okay. Mirror finish CAD is non-authentic. So if you open the door, open the bonnet, and it's sort of all plated and looks like a custom car, it most likely is a custom car that's non-authentic. Smoothing. The definition of this is removing of casting or manufacturing blemishes that a factory did not take the time to correct. What they're trying to get at here is that you can clean things, you can make it nice, but don't overdo it. And particularly sand cast items should not have that rough texture removed. And don't do it to a sand cast carburetor, because that's an expensive item. Talked about that. Oh, I'll put this is new for this year. Late model alloy bodied cars. So this is for the XJ, so the F-types, I think F-Paces might look like this, XKs from 2006 onwards. It's the alloy bodied cars of the new generation. They have these cast items around the suspension. This is the front suspension of an XJ8, and this is kind of a close in here. They're not smooth. There's kind of, they might be sort of a bit dirty from these pictures, but they are they're not smooth. There's sort of little bits of roughness, and uneven paint is typical as well. So be aware of that and don't overjudge those areas, because they are cast, and the cast marks can be seen in them.
I can tell you that when you take Windex and a toothbrush and clean that bottom picture, you're probably going to remove the paint, because there's one layer of paint on there, and I don't think there's any primer under it. Yeah,
it's worthwhile knowing that these are magnificently engineered, but there's typically they're not as good. They don't look as polished and prepared as the exterior panels.
Well, they didn't clear coat. They didn't clear coat the engine compartment.
No.
By the way, Steve, what do you think about? What's your opinion regarding powder coated components on XKs and E-types? Or any
powder coated looks great, but it's not authentic.
It's not authentic. So what would be the deduction? That's a non-authentic.
It'd be a non-authentic deduction.
Yeah.
We had someone with the Series 2 E-type that powder coated his heater. It looked wonderful, but
yeah, but it's not authentic, right?
It wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Carbs, fuel injection cylinder head. Look through this here. Some cars, and we're talking about cars from the 60s, had painted cylinder heads, and the paint color. There's a paint color chart in the rule book that shows what's appropriate for which car, for which engine, and so on.
Actually, David, it goes back to the 50s.
I wouldn't know about that, but thank you for that. The XK 140 MC was red. You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And the 150 was blue. The standard 150 was blue, and then there was also a 3.4. 3.8 was blue, 3.4 was green, kind of a moss green, and then the 3.8S was pumpkin, kind of an orangey yellow.
And there were two different colors of pumpkin.
Yeah, and two different colors of pumpkin.
One or more was school bus yellow, the other one Halloween pumpkin.
Yeah, and then the 3.8 Mark II had a metallic blue head.
So all this is in the rule book, but that's what that's all about. There is
just be aware that that it really did mean something. All those different colors.
Exhaust. Some of the cars had porcelainized manifolds, which is like a shiny ceramic coating. It looks absolutely beautiful until it doesn't. Check that for rust and flaking and all the rest of it. light rust is normal on non-porcelainized manifolds. Now, on the more modern cars, you can't even see the exhaust or the manifolds and so on. So this is particularly appropriate for the older cars. Electrical, spark plug wire routing and connectors. That's a big thing if you've got the again the XK engine. And the cooling, the wiring, and so on. Authenticity. Now, what I'm going to run through now is a few charts to show. This is about correctness. The minimum non-authenticity deduction is 0.5, so that's worth remembering. And what we're trying to look for is non-Jaguar approved parts, whatever they are. So this side moldings, leapers are kind of obvious ones, but it's incorrect parts after service or after restoration. If you bought your car brand new, but it wasn't as we would have expected, then it might get a deduction, and it will be the owner's responsibility to justify that exception, if you like. Also,
here's a question off that.
Pardon?
Here's a question off of that. It says non-Jaguar approved parts such as side moldings or leapers. Now that's been a big source of debate on the XJ6, particularly the Series 3, where when they were imported to the United States, the leaper was installed as a dealer installed option.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the car was purchased with the leaper, a lot of people would argue that's original, but it didn't leave the factory that way. So what are we as judges supposed to do on that?
I think you're right, and in some cases, those factory added elements are okay, but we're not 100% consistent, because dealers chrome plated wheels,
right?
That's not allowed. On some cars, the leaper was added, and on some cars like the E-Type, they have that sort of smiley bumper thing, and that's okay.
The AMCO bars.
Yeah,
The AMCO bars.
sorry about that. We've just got a
It's kind of risk.
give us a minute. Right. So going back to the leapers, in the regular books, in the book somewhere, I can't remember which guide it is, it says that for the XJ6 that you mentioned, it's allowed.
Okay.
And that's where we're inconsistent, if you like. If that same XJ6 had its wheels chrome plated by the same dealer, then that wouldn't be allowed. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Those, the Starfish wheels.
yeah.
Yeah, because those are supposed to be powder coated, right? Yeah.
They're two-tone paint. They're nice.
Right.
Anyway, so and also a missing part is non-authentic. We talked about these mats before. So if the lambskin mat or lamb's wool mats were replaced by rubber mats, they're non-authentic, or we're missing, it's the same deduction. Authenticity.
On authenticity, I just got this from Hal. If both horns sound out but are obviously not the correct tone, even if they are not visible, that entry passes OV, but a 4-point deduction by the primary team is still to be given for non-authenticity. That's from Hal. So the OV passes OV with Italian horns, but the OV team is to make a note. Then the primary judging team is to take a non-authentic deduction for the horns.
Did he give you a reference of where he got the 4.0 deduction?
So it's 2 point.
Oh, it's 2 each.
Points for each, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I got it. So
Mark, I just sent that to you.
So what I'm looking at, I don't know if the video will show this, but I've got the judge's guide here. Horns, 2 points each.
Right.
Note B. Horns or other items that were not factory available for the model or non-authentic, $2 points each. So that's 4 points for the Italian air horns. That works. Authenticity responsibilities. The entrant is responsible presenting the well-prepared Jaguar and proof of authenticity on questioned items. So it helps if the owner of the car knows what's likely to be questioned, or if there is anything to be questioned, to bring something. An example could be a F-type with a fixed spoiler that's not an SVR. There's some aftermarket spoiler from Jaguar, and it's in the accessories brochure. So if you're showing that car, bring your accessories brochure in case the judge thinks it's non-original or non-authentic. Judges are responsible for recognizing and confirming authenticity and non-authenticity. Well-informed judges will be able to reference sources that validate their findings. Assess the documentation submitted by the entrant, and it should be an official Jaguar publication.
Actually, that top bullet, as required, well-informed judges, it should not be entrants, will be able to refer to official sources to validate their findings.
Well done. 80.
Yeah, the entrant has to provide authenticity references.
Entrant. Judges. Thank you. I've never been picked up on this before. That's when the entrant says, you know, that thinks it's okay and it's never been picked up before, isn't adequate if the judge believes it to be non-authentic. Per item deductions cannot be reduced by the judge. So again, stick to the minimums and all the rest of it. Authenticity documentation. So this is actually, I should reference this to do that chart 9 when we said we should add official documentation. This is, I knew it was in here somewhere, but it's 70 charts too late. Official Jaguar documents are the best source of this. So all of that stuff there. This is a repeat of the chart that we've already seen, and it's included for completeness. There are some technical bulletins available from the JCNA, and these are those. Our club has them. Common non-authentic items to look for. Basically, you've got to be familiar. And again, if you're not familiar with the car type that you're judging, you will be surrounded by people who are. So don't be intimidated by some of this stuff. Look for details that don't just look right, and some non-authentic items follow. So here's an example of missing parts. That there's supposed to be a chrome part around there. It's missing from the windshield trim. That's a hole missing. Probably it's from an E-type, and it's probably the heated rear window, but the switch isn't there, so something's missing. That's an XJ8 missing its air suspension linkage. So that's got an aftermarket strut and spring. Some of these you might not spot, like that one. Well, And sometimes you have to know what's missing. So that part there is a sort of a cloth braided line. If this were a Series 1E type, that should be vinyl, or sort of, it's like a white vinyl tube that discolors. If this was a Series 1, the commission plate's supposed to be there also. So I suspect this is a Series 2 where the connection plate's on the other side. Here's an example of something that doesn't look quite right. That's not missing. It's right-hand drive provisions on the left-hand drive car. So the clutch and brake bottles are on the other side of the car. This is what was left over from the factory when they made them left-hand drive. Processing non-authentic deductions. Judges need to pay particular attention to this. Talk with each other. Is it right? Is it not right? Then inform the entrant of non-authenticity findings and ask if the entrant can document the authenticity. And for those that remain, the entrant's initials are required, and the entrant initials that they're aware. It doesn't signify agreement, but if not initialed by the entrant, non-authenticity deductions will be ignored in scoring. So if you see something that's not right, get the entrant to sign it. The entrant may follow up shortly afterwards with, they couldn't find the evidence then, and maybe they'll follow up with the chief judge later to say, hey, I couldn't find it, but my roof rack is authentic and here's the evidence.
I got a question for you on your underlined one there. If not initialed by the entrant, non-authenticity deductions will be ignored in scoring. That's not correct.
Really?
No, if it's not initialed by the entrant, you call a chief judge. That's on your slide 88.
Yeah, I thought refusal to initial was grounds for disqualification.
Right.
Yeah. What you say? I'll write something down about that. Well, I'll follow up with you, Steve, on an update for that. So the not initialed needs to be referred to chief judge or disqualify. Scoring non-authentic items. Use the non-authentic items they're listed in chapter 6. If it's not identical, use something similar. If what you have queried isn't specifically listed. Don't exceed the maximum. If a component judge is unsure about non-authentic, ask questions of another team judge on the same team, the team lead, and or the chief judge for verification. There is a quick reference guide in the Concor rulebook, which is really, really useful to have with you. And this has the tables for the non-authentic deductions. So top tip is to have that available with you while judging. Scorekeeper. I'm going to flick through this because, well, the scorekeepers basically score the sheet. So the judges don't do the any math. They don't have to add up and all the rest of it. The scorekeeper adds the totals the scores, and this is separate from entrance for privacy reasons and all the rest of it. Cleanliness and condition, a single item may be assessed both for non-authenticity and cleanliness. I talked about this earlier, go with the one with the highest point. So if it's non-authentic and dirty, go with only one deduction. License frames. Excuse me, just need a drink. Champion, plain license frames. Or those advertising Jaguar dealerships, JCNA, or promoting the Jaguar marker accepted, and other frames will be scored as non-authentic, unless they were offered for that year with proof from the entrance. Driven, license plate frames and covers only for cleanliness and condition. Plastic or glass license plate covers are allowed, and if present will be judged for cleanliness and condition. Pinstripes, XJS here doesn't have pinstripes in the right place. This depending on the year, they were none or lower down. Little table here to help. This is all in the rule book, by the way. Pardon me. And my 87 XJS has pinstripes. They're tape, not paint, and the maximum deduction is 1 point. Is that 1 point per panel?
I think it might be. So I know if you want.
Wire wheels. There's different wire wheels for the different cars, and it's detailed in the rule book. There's 60 spokes, 72 spokes, and here's a sort of an example to show the earlier types with the low spoke count, and that looks like a 72 from a series. I was going to say a series 2, but it's got a series 1 spinner on a series 2 wheel. So there you go. Exterior tires. We talked about this for reference B for size. Speed rating. If it's less than 15 years old, the speed rating should be as original. So a V or a W or a Y or whatever the high performance tires are. If it's older than 15 years, it may have different speed rating tires. Just a second. However, I would be careful with insurance to make sure that if you did use lower speed rating tires than the car is capable of, that it's okay with your insurance provider. Black or white sidewalls are the entrance option. White sidewalls should be consistent with the vintage. So there's sort of wide sidewalls and narrow sidewalls, and make sure that they're the same size. Leapers. So we talked about this earlier. The JCNA allows leapers on XJ series 1s, 2s, 3s, XJ40s, even though they didn't always come with it. It's sort of not unusual to see them. Don't put them on your E-type, your XK 120, 40, XJS. I am really So that should clarify the leapers. So between 1970 and 1994, there were no leapers on all models. But some people put them on. License plate holders and brackets. Thank you. Some states, Florida I'm aware of, and maybe Arizona, don't require front license plates at all. But the car was originally provided with mounting plates, and so we're supposed to have them for our Concours car. And if the car had a separate front license bracket, it must be displayed on or off the car. If it's missing, it should have a non-authentic deduction, and it's a common E-type floor and also XK8s. So enough about that. Hose clamps. There's a mostly Cheney, and I think we've got some examples here. These are some good pre-1975 hose clamps. They're not cut through. That's the typical characteristic that you're looking for. They don't look like they're solid, if you know what I mean. With the screw being just a little bit of a groove in there. And these are non-authentic. They've got sort of they're cut all the way through. They're perforated straps, or the screw head isn't quite right. Brake light switches. The judge's guide is best for this, but these are different brake light switches that are seen on. I'm familiar with these on XKEs by the front bolt, the picture frame. Early cars had this kind of arrangement. Later cars had this, and the Otter switches, which are used for the thermostat to switch on the fan. There's multiple variations of these, and you should be aware of what's correct for the that's an early plug end there, and this is sort of a summary of what was fitted to the different cars. Grommets. That's okay. It fits the wire nicely. It fits the body nicely. It looks good. If it sort of doesn't fit properly, it probably isn't correct. Items with odd colouring. That nylon fuel hose, that started life white, and it changes colour because it reacts with gasoline. It's okay, but most items in the engine bay were just black. Things like that are an obvious giveaway. That never came from the factory. Series 2 E-types have a nylon T-piece. For a while, it wasn't available, so people used sort of brass fittings or steel and all the rest of it. It was a giveaway. It wasn't correct. That's what it should look like. That's that white hose that turns very, very quickly. It turns yellow, but they're available now. So bolts, washers, nuts and screws, and I thought there might be a picture there of the washers and all the rest of it. They may be painted. They may not be painted. They may be plated. This is where real knowledge is needed. This is a plated air rails from a V12.
Has anybody go back one slide? Has anybody heard that coloring on there was actually a corrosive protection that was meant to be wiped off? Because you touch that stuff with Windex, it comes off. I've always heard it's mostly for like shipping, so the salt air didn't make them corrode. Has anybody else ever heard that?
I haven't.
Okay.
So the comment here is that there are some things here that are too shiny, too overdone. So this is a Series 3 type. It looks like the carburetors is much shinier than expected. That range shift maybe as well.
Somebody is not muted. And I hear background chatter. Does anybody know who that is?
Just give me. I am able to mute everybody.
It was somebody coming up named Chris. That wasn't muted.
He's muted now.
Oh,
So everybody's now muted. But if you want to speak, just unmute yourself and talk. It's just for that. It's just to eliminate that background chatter. That's the finish of that Chrome 8 protection. This is reasonably well polished, but not over polished. On this breather on the front of the XK engine, sometimes you see copper washers, which are used everywhere else apart from at the front here. They're split lock washers. A lot of people have copper washers there, which is incorrect. I think you have to be a real expert to know this, but the wire apparently was originally wrapped around this horn relay. And so this is an example of incorrect routing, and that's how it should look. Some XK120 stuff here. I would not know all of this. We need to know cars like this well to provide good feedback to owners. Cylinder head washers. I know about this. Mine's supposed to have D washers on my car and it doesn't. So XK engines had dome nuts with a D-shaped chrome washer, except in some places like in the corners. So if they're not these D washers, then they're incorrect. Batteries, some have these domed covers. This type of Optima battery, never offered with the car, so they're non-authentic. But they're not judged in driven. So what you do there is up to the owner. Phones. Radar detectors. So a radar detector that's non-Jaguar is non-authentic. For Championship, there's no penalty for neatly installed vintage correct radios. If you've got a driven car, you could have, in theory, you could have a new head unit on with a pop-out navigation system in your XJS, providing it fits. It fits in the original location. Period correct seat belts may be added. Adding instruments and so on is non-authentic. Different steering wheels, etc., non-authentic. Logos should be as it left the factory. If they're not there, not missing, it's not authentic. If it's wrong or missing, it's that minimum of half a point deduction. So an older car here with the correct Lucas logo on the mirror. Lucas on the backup light. This these are the updates from prior years. So these are the backup slides now. So I'm going to stop here with the chart, with the charts. We've been through, I think, enough charts, enough of a recap here. What I would like to do is have a break for 5 minutes, and then go through the test.